Hello and welcome to another one of my videos. I don't do voiced videos often, but I've been working on a project and I wanted to share my thoughts. But first, I'd like to say thank you to everyone who has watched my videos. Thank you to everyone who has subscribed, liked or commented on one of my videos. It really means a lot. I now have two channels, one for main videos and one for shorts. So thank you to everyone who has supported me. I am a fibre artist who likes both cross stitch and crochet. Despite having been doing crochet for over 2 years now, I haven't really ventured far into trying many new techniques. A while ago I brought some vintage cross stitch patterns. When looking through the book there was a pattern that I thought would make the perfect blanket. So I started looking into techniques I could use to turn this cross stitch pattern into a blanket. This sent me down a bit of a rabbit hole looking into different tapestry crochet methods. I wanted to try multiple different techniques that I found to see what worked best for me and for the project that I had in mind. Today I'm going to talk about the different methods that I tried and my thoughts on each method. Please keep in mind that I am new to tapestry crochet and in so many ways still new to crochet. In a lot of the projects that I'm about to show, this was my first time trying that stitch or that technique. If you can think of any tapestry stitches or techniques that you really like that I haven't tried in this video, please comment them below because I would love to try multiple different methods. So to start with, I developed a very small 10 by 20 pattern that I thought would be perfect to use as a little trial for all these different methods. I developed it using 3 different colours because I thought that this would provide the perfect opportunity to try different colour changes but also not be too complicated for my first time trying all these methods. I felt it was a good size to try each technique and also give me an indication of which technique turns out as which size. I'll put a picture of the pattern that I made here. It's just a simple tulip pattern with a couple of colours in it. So throughout these projects I used either my 4mm hook or my 5mm hook, depending on which method I was trying and depending on what suited that method better. So those were the 2 hooks that I used. The yarn that I used was Hobbii Rainbow 100% cotton 8/8. It's quite a thick yarn. I used this because this is the yarn that I'm using for my temperature blanket this year, and I had a lot spare where colours that I wasn't using in my temperature blanket but I had to purchase with the colours that I wanted for my temperature blanket, so I figured this was the perfect chance to use them up, try something new without having to go out and purchase more yarn for this project. The first method that I tried was single crochet cross stitch, where one stitch represents one square on my graph. From my research, this is the most common technique for tapestry crochet, and I'll put a clip in here of me working on the single crochet method. This here is my worked up single crochet tapestry project. So as you can see, I haven't weaved in all the ends yet. I didn't really see the point in spending time on that as these are just trials. Overall, I really like this method. I think it produces a really nice tapestry crochet, and being obviously the most common method, I really enjoyed it, and I think obviously there's a lot of patterns out there for this that I can try in future. As you can see from the back, I did float my yarn mostly up here, but I did also try carrying my yarn through the project at times as well. So I tried a bit of both techniques on this one. The only thing that I'm unsure of in this method is in some places, like here, if you can see that, I'm getting an extra little bit of the base colour coming through. So if you have any suggestions on how to stop that, please let me know in the comments down below, because I'd be really interested to try and prevent that in future projects that I do with this method. I also tried some variations on the single crochet, methods that I'd found online that said that they might help with certain things that people see as issues within the single crochet tapestry. The first of that was the extended single crochet. Here is a clip of me doing the extended single crochet tapestry. Another method I tried was the back loop only single crochet, and here is a clip of me doing the back loop only single crochet. And here are the final pieces. This is the extended single crochet, and this is the back loop only single crochet. So the extended single crochet obviously just makes the project just that little bit larger. If I bring in the single crochet, you can see that it's not that much wider, but overall it is a bit longer. I think this one was perhaps a little bit neater overall, but that was more because I was used to the tapestry technique. I was carrying my yarn a bit better, as you can see from the back, and overall I just had a bit more practice by the time I got to this one. I'm not quite sure what happened at the top here, but there's a little weird patch up here. So the back loop only crochet obviously created a different texture. Size wise it is quite similar to the single crochet, but just a tiny bit longer, but it does create this very interesting and almost stretchy ribbed texture. I'm not sure that I have done this 100% correct, as mine does look slightly different to some of the ones that I was finding online that suggested this method, but that also could just be because my yarn was very thick and therefore created very thick ridges. Again, on this one I floated my yarn rather than carrying it through in most circumstances, and overall I'm not sure whether I prefer carrying my yarn or floating my yarn, so that's something that I will figure out as I do more tapestry projects. I think for a basic tapestry project I would stick with just the single crochet. I think the extended single crochet just makes the project a little bit too long and extends it beyond its typical ratio, and I think the back loop only definitely has its place, but not for basic tapestry. However, I do already have a project in mind to use this interesting texture, so hopefully over the next couple of months I'll get that project done and be able to use this texture to the advantage of the project. The next method that I found and tried was double crochet. With double crochet I tried two different methods, and that was simply curiosity. I tried double crochet where one double crochet represents a square on the project, and I tried double crochet where two double crochets represent a square on the project. Here is a clip of me doing just one double crochet per square. And here is a clip of me doing two double crochets per square. This is the double crochet where one double crochet represents one square, and here is the double crochet where two double crochets represent one square on the pattern. This one is obviously struggling to fit on camera just a little bit because it is very long. Compared to the single crochet, it is more or less double the size, which is to be expected because a double crochet is about double the size of a single crochet. This one was more just for my curiosity because I was really curious to see what would happen if I just did one single crochet per square. Is it literally double the length? But obviously it doesn't adjust size or width wise, and therefore it looks very long and elongated rather than being the typical dimensions you would expect from the project. With the double crochet 2 per square, I only did half the pattern just because it was working up very nicely and I could see what it was doing and could see that I liked it. Obviously with this one I did carry my yarn very successfully, which I was quite proud of, and overall I think this worked up really nicely. I think for me overall I do prefer the single crochet for tapestry, but I do think that the double crochet gives a really nice aesthetic, and I think for blankets this would actually work up really nicely in tapestry. So the next method that I came across when I was searching for how to turn cross stitch patterns into crochet was creating a crochet fabric and then cross stitching onto that with yarn. I was really intrigued by this method and wanted to try it out. So I did 2 versions of this method. I did a single crochet fabric that I then cross stitched on the top of, and I did a Tunisian crochet fabric, which again I then cross stitched onto the top of. Here is a clip of me cross stitching onto the single crochet fabric. And here is a clip of me cross stitching onto the Tunisian crochet fabric. And here are the final products. So this one here is the single crochet fabric, and this one here is the Tunisian crochet fabric. This was the first time I'd ever tried Tunisian crochet and I really enjoyed it. I don't have the correct tools for Tunisian crochet, so I did just use my regular hook. Obviously being only 10 stitches, I was able to fit it onto my regular hook. But if I was doing a project larger than this with this method, I would obviously need to buy a proper Tunisian crochet hook. With the Tunisian crochet, I did 1 strand of yarn for my cross stitch, and I used these neat little squares that are created by this method as a guide for where to cross stitch. Overall, I really like this method, and the Tunisian crochet fabric is a really solid, nice fabric. With the single crochet, I did things a little bit different. Down here with the stem, I used only 1 strand of yarn. Up here for the head of the flower, I used 2 strands of yarn for each cross. Obviously, I wanted to look at what the coverage was like for both the single strand and the double strand. I think overall I prefer the single strand because I like the way that it looks. There is little gaps in between and it's not full coverage, but typically that's what I get when I cross stitch as well. I think up here with the double strand, it just created a bit more of a stiff project and was quite hard to have 2 strands going through the holes. I feel like it stretched it out a little bit too much for what I liked. Obviously, if you were using a thinner yarn on top of the yarn you'd used for your fabric, that wouldn't be so much of an issue. Overall, I really enjoyed working these two pieces up, and it really did feel like I was crocheting and cross stitching as a mix. However, I don't think I'll be using these methods for future tapestry projects, and definitely not for the blanket that I have in mind, just because I feel like some of the other techniques I tried will create a better blanket overall than this method here. So the next method I'm going to show you is another quite common method in tapestry crochet, and that's corner to corner crochet. I did have to try this technique a few times just to get the method in my head. I did struggle with it slightly at first, but once I got into the swing of it, it was really easy to work up a project, and I worked this up really quickly. And this is the sample I produced to practice the method. So I used the same yarn and just worked obviously corner to corner, practicing the method. I did have to frog it a few times to get the method, but overall I really like the aesthetic. Here is a clip of me working up a corner to corner crochet piece. Here is the final project. Now it isn't going to all fit on camera at once, but obviously you can see the whole piece as I move it up. I really enjoyed this method, and I really enjoy the end result. The aesthetic of the end result I think is really nice. I think it really gives a nod to pixel art and creates a really nice size piece of work. If we compare it to the single crochet, there is a huge size difference. So obviously they're different methods that you would use for different types of tapestry, but overall I really enjoyed this technique. This piece only took me a few hours to work up, because once I got into the swing of it, it was really easy to work up and creates a really nice final project. The next method I tried is not a super common technique, but is definitely one that I saw multiple fibre artists doing. The inspiration for me starting this one was this artist right here, who produced this gorgeous cupcake granny square tapestry project, and I was really intrigued by this method. I have actually never worked up a granny square before in my 2 years of crochet, so again this technique took me a little bit of trial and error to work out. I'll put a clip in here of me working up a few trial granny squares and trying different sizes and slightly different techniques. Here is some samples of the different granny squares that I trialled to see what technique and size I liked the best. I thought these tiny little ones were really cute, but figured they would be slightly harder and slightly more frustrated to work up than a double layered granny square. Ultimately, I settled on using this technique here, which I thought created a really nice granny square. Here is a sample for different methods of joining I tried for the granny squares. I had join as you go, a sort of blanket stitch or running stitch style join, what was considered to be a flat join, and multiple other different joins. Now this is definitely not a project that I can fit in this camera view here, so I will insert here a picture of the full project. As you can see from this picture, this project is actually in two different parts. After trialing a few different methods of joining the granny squares, I decided to trial two different types of joining methods. One, join as you go, and two, a flat join after you've made up the granny squares. I decided to do the top part of the project as join as you go, and the bottom part of the project as join the squares afterwards. That's why here in this image you can see a slight difference in the width between the top part and the bottom part, and ultimately why these two halves are not joined together. Although you can't see the whole project, here is the part where I joined the squares as I went. It creates a really nice join here, and ultimately I think this looks really nice. Here is the part where I joined the squares after I had made them all. I really liked this joining method, and it creates a really nice flat joining method that I think works really well with the colour changes that I have here. I did also, with this method, try bringing the joining around corners where I was going to need to change colours. I think although I need to get slightly better at this corner joining, it did work out really well, and I'm really pleased with the results. Obviously, as you can see from this project here, and as you probably noticed from the picture, there is two different colours of background on this piece, and that is because ultimately by the time I got to this piece I had run out of the white. I didn't want to buy more because this was just scrap yarn to trial different projects, and also this colour was actually sold out when I went online to have a look. So I used a slightly different colour, which is not as intense as the blue that I used for the flower, but just to finish the project and to see the overall project size and finish. Ultimately, I preferred this joining method over the join as you go one, and that's just because it worked better with my crochet style and the way that I did this project. Overall, I'd be really excited to do another project with granny squares. I think for the project that I had in mind from the vintage cross stitch project, this method would be too big. It would probably create a blanket that was double the size of a king size bed. But I think for other smaller projects this would be absolutely perfect, and I'm already thinking of projects that I can do using this method here. Another method I tried was the bobble stitch tapestry method. When I was doing my research, I came across this picture here and was absolutely intrigued. I did some research into the artist and the project and found out that this was using bobble stitch. And here is my sample piece where I tried changing colours with the bobble stitch. I really liked the way this worked up, and even from this sample piece I was excited to get on to the actual piece and try it out. Here is a clip of me working up the pattern in this bobble stitch method. And here is the final piece. I really like this method, and I think it combines a lot of different aspects of different methods that I like. I think overall the shape still gives a really big nod to pixel art, but has a slightly softer edge than the corner to corner crochet. I really like the texture that this produces, and I already have multiple projects in mind to use this method for. You can see here from this piece that this side here is slightly curved. I think this edge here is very straight, but this edge is obviously slightly tighter on the tension. I did 1 stitch per change in row, but for my tension I may need to increase that to 2 or increase it to 1.5 just to create a slightly straighter line up this edge. The final method that I'm going to show you today is a method that I couldn't find anyone else using, but that I decided to try after looking at different stitches and looking at stitches that work up in sort of a square or pixel style of stitch. But if you know of any other artists that have used it, please let me know down in the description below, because I'd be really excited to see how other people use this method. So the method I tried is corner to corner granny stitch. Here is my sample piece of granny square corner to corner crochet, and I'll put a clip in here of me working up the final piece of granny corner to corner stitch. I think this gives a really different aesthetic to the other 2 methods that I tried. It gives a much softer and more rounded edge. Once again, I really enjoyed working up this piece, and I found it really easy to work up once I got into the swing of things. Like corner to corner, it works up from one corner going diagonally across all the way up to this final corner. I think this gives a really different aesthetic to the other 2 methods I tried that were around this size, being the corner to corner one and the bobble stitch, and I think this one would look really interesting on certain pieces. I'm definitely going to try this method again, and it's also in the running for the piece that I had in mind that started this obsession and research into tapestry crochet. I think with this method I do need to be careful carrying my yarn, as there is some places here where it's just peeking through a little bit too much. There were 2 other methods that I tried that just didn't work out this time. First of one was the blanket stitch. I wanted to try this one because it created really nice square stitches, but also because the end result did in some ways look like Ida, which is a fabric on which I do cross stitch. Unfortunately though, it just didn't work out. I couldn't work out how to stop the very obvious colour changes, and overall I just didn't like the aesthetic that I was getting from it with the colour changes. This is definitely a method that I want to try again in the future, see if I can create a slightly softer colour change between these 2 colours, and see if I can get it working for tapestry crochet. The other method that I tried was entrelac stitch. I don't know if I'm saying that correct, but that's how I've heard it said, so that's what I'm going to go with. I did really struggle with this technique. I know that it is quite an advanced stitch, but I really struggled with this stitch. I couldn't keep my count. I couldn't get it worked up enough to even try the colour changes. So overall, I scrapped that one for now, and definitely am going to come back to that when I have more experience with crochet and I'm better able to do this stitch. Overall, I really enjoyed trialing all these different methods. I learned a lot about crochet and different techniques, and I'm very excited to use these methods in further projects. I'm still slightly undecided which one of these techniques I'm going to use for the vintage project that I had in mind, but I'm really excited to try it and get all the colours I need and start that project at some point this year. I hope you liked all the methods that I tried, and if you can think of any other methods that I've missed, please let me know in the comments down below, because I would be really excited to do a part 2 of this video where I try other methods of tapestry crochet. Look out for different videos on my channel where I use these different methods, because I have definitely become a bit obsessed with tapestry crochet and have been doing projects using these methods since I finished trialing them out. If you have any questions, please feel free to ask in the comments down below. And once again, thank you to everyone who supports my channel, and thank you for watching this video.